Hello, my name is James Reeve and welcome to my distance modelling walkthrough in Unreal Engine 5 and Wwise. In this short video, I'll be going through what distance modelling is, what it's used for, and some different methods for it. Distance modelling is a basic example of how designers stray away from the laws of physics and model distance differently. In the real world, sounds at short enough distances follow the inverse square law, but once they're beyond a certain threshold, air absorption takes over. In the world of game audio, developers often deviate from this for many reasons, but some of the key ones being world scale, limited dynamic range, and gameplay feel. But alongside this, distance modelling can be massively useful as a sound design tool, and that's what I'll mostly be focusing on today. Explosions are a great way to practice distance modelling, and what initially inspired this process was a redesign I worked on for MW2. Check it out. This is obviously massively unrealistic, but I just wanted to see if I could recreate this more cinematic, delayed style of explosion in Unreal and Wwise. To start with, I'm going to go through my Wwise setup. Initially, I've gone ahead and set up some RTPCs that I know I'm going to need, namely an RTPC for distance and another for explosion size. The value of my distance RTPC will be based upon the scale of my level, and the value of the explosion RTPC will be taken from the variable I've set up within the explosion blueprint itself. I've also set up an attenuation share set that will decrease the voice volume and spread depending on the distance, making the sound more directional at range. For my explosions, I'm going to want an initial distant blast that triggers when the bomb actually goes off, so I've gone ahead and set up a blend track that blends between a couple different random containers for shorter and further distances. The blend track is being controlled by the distance RTPC we set up earlier, along with some filtering and voice volume. The voice volume is also being controlled by the size of the explosion. Let's go ahead and set up this simple blueprint and test how it sounds in game. Now that we've got the initial blast working, we can turn our attention to the incidentals, the shockwaves and debris after the blast. For this, we want to be able to delay the sounds based on the relative distance to the listener, divided by the speed of sound. For the incidentals, I've set up the actor mixer with 3 different random containers, one for debris, one for the whoosh, and a final one for the sonic boom. These are all being posted within the same event, with the initial delay of the boom always being around half a second behind the whoosh. On the actor mixer, I've got the velocity offset and the voice pitch being controlled by the distance, so the further away it is, the deeper and more spread out the sound will be. Moving into Unreal, I just wanted to quickly touch on the level I've got set up. Here we have our character/listener on top of the mountain, with 3 buildings placed at gradually further distances away. These buildings will then explode at varying delays. The blueprint I put together for my distance modelling has been put together with the explosion itself, so that I can easily pull the values for explosion sizes and distances. To start with, I've got a user-defined delay set up to control the actual start of the explosion. We then split off into a sequence. From there, we can post the initial explosion event and set our RCPC value for distance. To get this, we're going to find our distances between our player and the explosion itself. We then move on to the explosion size, which we get our value from the explosion scale variable. That's then vector length squared into a float we can use. I've also set this variable up that defines whether or not the explosion is close or not. All this will do is bypass the speed of sound delay and instantly trigger the incidentals if it's close enough. This will avoid any kind of weird whooshing from a sound that's too close. I'm doing this by setting the variable to true if the distance between the listener and the explosion is less than 80 meters. I've done this to taste, you guys can choose whatever close proximity you want, but this is what I've gone for. The next part of the sequence deals with the whoosh, shockwave and debris. The first part is to check if the explosion was close or not. If so, we'll just trigger the event. If not, we've set up a delay that will get its duration from the distance between the listener and the explosion divided by the speed of sound. You don't have to use the speed of sound, as not all levels and games will use the same realistic scale, but it's what I've gone with. Once this is all in place, we can test our level. Thanks for taking the time to check out my short video on distance modeling within Unreal and Wwise. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments or send me a message. Thanks.